Okay, the subjunctive tense is challenging enough, right? But you start getting better at it, and then you find out there are some verbs you don't know how to put in the subjunctive. I mean, what about the verb ir, to go? Ire. It can be confusing. So in this episode, I'm going to give you some irregular subjunctive verbs so you can clean up those confusing words in your conversation and be the master of subjunctive. And of course, once you learn these, the best thing you can do is practice them in conversation as much as possible. You know, it's really important to learn correct structures, practice them and then put them into your conversation correctly, because at that point, they just start to feel natural to you and you're speaking correctly. And speaking of practicing correctly, one of the best ways that you can do that is with italki. With italki, you get personalized one-on-one language lessons with native speaking teachers for the most effective learning. Now, as I've been continuing to learn Dutch, I get to meet with a native Dutch speaker and get undivided attention and personalized feedback immediately. And with more than 30,000 teachers worldwide, you can easily find a teacher for the language you want to learn. You can use their many filtering options to find your ideal teacher who can work with you on your schedule and provide personalized content for your unique needs, your interests, and your goals. And you can always find a teacher who speaks your native language as well. And the best part is you get conversation in the target language, and that means you're constantly improving your speaking and listening skills. You're gaining confidence through live interaction, and you're learning authentic native expressions that are actually spoken in the language and, not just something you learned in an outdated textbook. Now, also, there are no subscriptions. It's paper lessons. There are no contracts, and every user gets 3 lessons that are completely refundable if you're not satisfied. Don't wait to book. Right now, you can buy $10 and get $5 for free using my personal promo code, LANGUAGETUTOR. So, you've been thinking about learning that language. It's a great time to make it happen. Book your first italki lesson today. Now let's clean up some subjunctive verbs by bringing in those irregular verbs, those troublemakers. Now, if you're watching this lesson and you're not sure what the subjunctive is, go back to lesson 58 here on my channel and get a full explanation of what subjunctive is and how to do it. But for those of you who know subjunctive, you may remember that back in my subjunctive lesson, I talked about the acronym WEIRDO. Now, we use this acronym to help us remember when to use a subjunctive. Well, now I'm going to give you a new one. D.I.S.H.E.S. Yes, D.I.S.H.E.S help us remember some very common verbs that are irregular in the subjunctive. Now, let's go through each letter one by one. Let's kick it off with D. D stands for the verb dar, to give. Now, let's put up our chart that we always use and look at the subjunctive conjugations. Here we go. De, des, de. Now, you'll notice that the yo form and the LAIHSTED form are the same. You're going to find that to be the case with all of these irregulars here. Okay, but we also have demos, des, and den. Now, notice we have accents on the yo form and the LAIHSTED form, but that's it. Now, here's an example of this verb in context. I want you to give me the recipe. Now, I like to cook, so I actually say that a lot. I want you to give me the recipe. Quiero que me des la receta. Okay? Now, the next letter in dishes is I. I stands for the verb ir, to go. Its conjugations all start with the letter V, just like in the present tense, the regular present. You remember, voy, vas, vamos, vais, fine. Here are the subjunctive conjugations. Vaya, vayas, vaya, same thing. Vayamos, vayáis, and vayan. Now, with this one, the only accent we have to remember is on that vosotros form. I know not everyone learns that form, but if you do, just keep that in mind. Okay, here's an example of the verb. Ellas quieren que se vaya. They want him to leave. Ellas quieren que se vaya. Let's look at the next letter, which is S. S stands for the verb ser, to be. Now here are the conjugations. Sea, seas, sea, seamos, seáis, and sean. Again, the only accent to worry about is on the vosotros form. Here's an example of this one. We want you to be a good person. You ever hear your parents say that? I remember I heard mine say that. Hopefully I did become a good person, but we want you to be a good person. Queremos que seas una buena persona. Queremos que seas una buena persona. All right, let's go to the next letter, which is H. H stands for the verb haber. Okay, this is a little bit weird. This verb is used in a lot of different tenses and with almost any verb. Now, since it's a helping verb, we're going to see it everywhere. Now, we'll look at the conjugations and then see an example. The subjunctive forms are haya, hayas, haya, hayamos, hayáis, and hayan. Now, we'll look at an example, but first, let's break down what this really is. Okay, so let's start by just thinking of the impersonal form of this word, I. I means there is, there are, is there, are there, can be used in all of those ways. Now, there are some sentences that use this verb in the subjunctive that really could be reworded in another way. So I did some searching to find some examples of what I'm talking about. Now, I saw this example. I thought it was really good. I want to have a good president in the country. You hear people say that when they're talking politics. I want to have a good president in the country. Think about this statement, though. The person is really saying, I want that there is a good president. You know, that sentence isn't correct in English. I know that. But if you think about it that way, it starts to make sense. So I means there is, and the person's basically saying, I want that there is, that's what I want, that there is a good president. So because it's what I want, it's a wish, then it would be subjunctive. So let's look at that example in Spanish. I want to have a good president in the country. Quiero que haya un buen presidente en el país. Hope that makes sense. So think of I in the subjunctive. All right. You may want to research some more examples of that. Now, the next letter is E, and that stands for the verb estar, the other form of to be. Here are the conjugations of it in the subjunctive: esté, estés, esté, estemos, estéis, and estén. Here's an example. I don't want her to be sick. I know we've heard that a lot. I don't want her to be sick. So, no quiero que ella esté enferma. All right, let's get that final letter, S, the other S. And that stands for the verb saber, which is one of the two forms of the verb to know. Here are the subjunctive forms: sepa, sepas, sepa, sepamos, sepáis, and sepan. Now, only accent to deal with again is that vosotros form. Here's an example of it. I hope you know the address. Espero que sepas la dirección. Espero que sepas la dirección. All right, amigos, with that, the dishes are done. And now you are a master of the present subjunctive tense. We filled in those gaps. And pretty soon, I'm going to clear up some more confusion by talking about the difference between le and lo. I know that is a big struggle for some people, so stay tuned. I wish for you and your family and friends paz y bendiciones. Hasta pronto.